Alright, what's up YouTube people? Now I'm assuming you clicked on this video because you're interested in affordable or budget 4K computer monitor or gaming, etc. Now what I got going on here is initially I had over there by that pumpkin I had a portrait or vertical 24-inch, and then I had a 32-inch landscape or horizontal, and then over here where the Atari thing is at another 24-inch vertical or portrait. So I had three monitors, which I liked. I had it that way for quite a while. It was really nice having the, the 32 in the middle for gaming, and they were all 1080p, and then having the portrait ones on the sides for production or productivity work, etc. But the problem was they took up. I have a 6-foot desk, and having them across my desk like that took up pretty much my entire desk, and then the vertical 24s on the ends over here had to be pulled out and tilted in a little bit, and just it was nice, but it just took up a lot of space. And like my little speakers I have here on the ends of the monitor or TV, I didn't even really have room for them because they were so spread out, and I had to pull them way out to, so I had them just hidden behind the monitors, which worked, but it wasn't that great. So I always wondered if these cheap 4K TVs from Walmart would make a very decent 4K computer monitor. So after reading around on the internet, I found some information, but not really just exactly what I was looking for. So I just went to Walmart and bought one, and figured if we'll get it all hooked up, and if it don't work, we'll just take it back. So here it is. This is a TCL. I'll get the model number in a second, but this is the TCL. This one was $218, and let's see. There are two other cheaper 43-inch 4K TVs, but my Walmart didn't have them. I think it's Scepter and RCA both make a 43-inch 4K non-smart. I think is why they're a little cheaper. I think they're around $180, which obviously in this case you really wouldn't need the smart unless you're doing this in like maybe your bedroom or a college dorm room where you want to use the TV as a TV because this has the built-in Roku, and you want to use it as a monitor at the same time. Then maybe the smart thing might be nice, but not really necessary, because if you have a computer hooked to it, you could just do all the same stuff anyway. But my Walmart didn't have those in stock in the 43. They only had them in the 50, and from where I sit, where my head is, from my measurements, a 50 is just a little too big. Maybe because I'm only 5'11"-ish, I think. If you're maybe a little taller fella, over 6 foot, maybe a 50-inch would be fine, because you kind of got more, more length, and you're up a little higher at your screen. And it all just depends how you sit at your screen. My height, the 43-inch was plenty big. I can look and see out into the corners and still read stuff without it getting too far out of the way. But my Walmart, anyway, only had the TCL 43-inch 4K for $218, and the Hisense 43-inch 4K. Now, the one I got, and it was just because I couldn't find quite as much information on the Hisense, I just went with that, and the price was lower. I went with the TCL, and it's the TCL 43S421, and it's $218, where the Hisense, from what I read, these two TVs are almost exactly the same TV. They both even use Roku. The Hisense was $228, so it's $10 more, and it's the Hisense 43R6E. But as far as I could tell, they're almost the exact same TV. Other than the price, I kind of like the Hisense better, because I think it has a brushed metal gray front, where the TCL has a gloss black piano finish front, which doesn't really matter, because it's a monitor like this you're never touching the bezel anyway, where you shouldn't be. So it's not really a big deal. It's not like I touch it a lot and it gets all fingerprinty. And they both seem to have, they're not really flat. It's like the screen's almost like semi-glossy. You do get a little bit of reflection on them, but it's not bad. But anyway, I went with the TCL, just because I've also heard good things about TCL as a budget TV. So I think that was it on those. Yeah, if my Walmart had the RCA or Scepter 43s, I would have. My initial goal was just to go there and buy the cheapest one, which I think would have been the Scepter. It was like $169.99, and just see if it would do what I needed to. But they didn't have it, so I guess I went with the next cheapest thing. Which even $218 for a 43-inch, we'll say, monitor is dirt cheap. And I believe these are not an IPS monitor. It's the other one, PLS monitor. I don't remember. Anyway, now got it home, hooked it up, plugged it into my computer. I have a HP Z420 workstation with a GTX 1060 in it, and just grabbed an HDMI cable I had laying around, plugged it in, and right off the bat, it does work in 4K, which I'm like, great, this looks pretty cool. But after having it that way for a couple hours and looking at text and stuff, I started to notice there's like a almost like a blue shadow on all the black text, and even the text would kind of go black and blue back and forth, like letter to letter. Just didn't seem right. And I grabbed my 32-inch Dell and hooked it back up to see maybe it's just something I didn't notice before. And nope, it's not supposed to be that way. So I started looking into it because I'm not super educated on this sort of thing, as far as like monitors and stuff and color. And let me scooch it closer here. When I came into here, into my Nvidia control panel or whatever, I noticed this was set to 32-bit. It was set on use default color settings, but it was 32-bit, and then the output color format was 420 YCbCr, and the color depth was 8, if I remember right, but the output dynamic range was limited. So this was 420, and this was limited. It was still at 60 hertz. Right off the bat, I did get the native 4K, 3840 by 2160 at 60. And then there's a bunch of other supported resolutions or refresh rates, but they're all lower than 60. Oh, and side note, if you go into the customize, I'm sure some of you know how you can force your monitor to refresh faster with the Nvidia driver or control panel. In here, I've done it. You can go in and change it up to, I think, 65, and it will test out. But I believe if you turn your computer off or put it to sleep, or turn the TV off and turn it back on, for some reason it will not come back. The screen will just stay black. And the only way I could get it undone is I had to plug in another monitor into my video card into a different output, and get Windows to show up on that monitor, and then come back in here and set the refresh rate back to the default instead of my custom one, and then the TV would come back on. I'm not sure why it does this, but when I got it set to 65 hertz refresh rate, it works until you turn the TV off or put your computer to sleep, or turn your computer off, and go to turn it back on. The TV comes on, but the screen just stays black for some reason. So it's not that big of a deal for me. I do play games, but I'm not like a competitive gamer. I'm fine with gaming at 60 hertz. Excuse me. So I figured I'd just leave it at 60. And I'm not sure what's really going on behind this panel. I don't know if doing that could possibly damage the TV. So back to the color issue. I mean, it looks great. A lot of people probably wouldn't even notice it. But just here, let me open up. The other reason I wanted to do this is because with a 43-inch at 100% scaling, it's still big enough that you can read everything. Because I know I've seen like 28-inch 4K monitors, and if you're running at 100% scaling, everything is so tiny, it just doesn't work unless you have like eagle eyes, and then you got to run your scaling up to 150, 200%. But at 43 inches, you can do 100% scaling, and as you can see, like even my taskbar down here is, all my icons are normal size, like you can compare it to my hand. You know, everything's totally legible. Let me back this up again for a second. I'm kind of jumping around here, but that's because I don't have time to like script out what I'm going to say in each video. I just do it. Anyway, the other reason I wanted the 4K 43 is because I like to multitask. I always have lots of things open at once. And at 100% scaling, this is roughly, from what I measure, this is pretty much the same as having four 21-inch monitors all together. Diagonally from corner to corner, these measure right at about 21 inches per screen. So I can effectively have four things open. You know, I can have my browsers open, you know, doing some stuff in Photo and Shotcut, whatever. So, but yeah, the productivity on this way is so much better than the three monitors, because it's all closer together too. I'm not having to turn my head back and forth as much. It's sharper, even though effectively this section of space, I guess I can't really work the math out in my head, but the pixel density should be, I don't know if it'd be the same as an actual 24. Yeah, it would. It should be the same as a 1080p 21-inch monitor, and a 1080p at 21 inches should have pretty good pixel density. Even 1080p at 24 inches is pretty good. So 1080 at 21 inches is even better. So even having four 21-inch screens, everything's still razor sharp and nice and clear and easy to read. So that was probably my biggest thing. Now that I have a GTX 1060, I have to game at low settings, and even then it kind of struggles, but I can remedy that in a little bit, and I'll just upgrade my video card. But not to say you can't game it with a 1060. I do have a few games that run pretty good at low medium. And if you want, since it's a 4K and it's 16:9, you can just leave this at 4K, and when you're in your game, just change resolution down to 1080p, and just, you know, then you got a 1080p 43-inch monitor until you can upgrade to a video card that'll run 4K. Which in the near future, it's not going to be expensive to have a video card that'll do 4K. So anyway, back to correcting the color issue. What I had to do, I read about it. I found someone in a forum that was talking about it. I looked through the menus and everything and tried everything I could, and I just couldn't get that 420 to change. I started by switching my HDMI cable. The one I had was just an unmarked, mass-produced HDMI cable. It didn't say on it whether it was high speed or what version or anything. So I went digging through my cables, and I did manage to find a monster cable, an HDMI monster cable. It doesn't say what revision it is. It just says high speed on it. I know it's got to be 5 or 6 years old, but it did say high speed on it. So I switched to that one. Didn't make any difference. And then I started, you get the little remote with these TVs. I believe you go back to, well, first thing I had to do, for some reason, another thing I had to do is when you hit the little star, this will focus, the little star asterisk button here, you go into this menu, and I had to go down to picture size and and it set it to auto. For some reason, don't know why, mine was set to normal. I forgot, this was one of the first things I do. It was set to normal for some reason. Don't know why. But I changed it to auto, and then everything scaled out, fits perfectly fine. Now, what fixed it, for the most part, is you go into Home, High again, and I'm going to go down to Settings, and then I kept going through all these settings trying to figure out if there was something in here that could fix it, and let's see, where'd it go? TV inputs, okay. Now, the HDMI 1 is going to my little Atari, $10 Atari emulator thing I bought, and my computer is right here on HDMI 3. Now, when I go into here, I notice there's an HDMI mode. And you'll see there's HDMI 1.4, 2.0, and auto. As far as I know, this TV and the Hisense, when you get them, it's going to be set to auto. And even if you're using a high-speed HDMI cable, it will not go to the HDMI 2.0 standard. It will, even though it says auto, it's 1.4. And I switched it to the 2.0, hit OK, went back to the computer, screen just went like Nvidia green. Don't know why, couldn't get anything, so I had to go back in here, set it back to auto, then it worked again. So long story short, what I had to do is I actually had to shut my computer down, turn it off, and then come in here and change it to HDMI 2.0, and or select it and then go back to the home where you can see your inputs, then turn the computer back on and give it a minute. And if I remember right, the TV like blinked or something, and then when I went back into computer, then it'll show up here. Once I select there, you can see it'll give you a preview. When you change this to 1.4 without turning your computer off, that will just be green, and if you try to go into it, it'll still be green. But if you shut your computer off, then change it to 2.0, and then turn your computer on, come back in here, it should show up in there, and then you select that, and then you're good. Don't know why, but that's just the way it had to go. And then once it was set to 2.0, I instantly could tell the color was better, whatever, more the way it's supposed to be. And then when I would come into the Nvidia control panel, we'll go back forward here so you guys can see. Whoa, bumping the camera. I guess that's just what I do all the time. I could probably zoom in a little bit here. This was all the same, the native 4K 60, but this had changed, and it doesn't matter whether it's on default or on the Nvidia. But I set mine to Nvidia, and when I set it to Nvidia, I didn't set it to these. This is just what it was. It was 32-bit. This had changed from the YCbCr 420 to RGB, and this stayed at 8bPc, and the output dynamic range changed from limited automatically, and it changed to full. So, poof. It was all just because for some reason this TV, and as far as I know, the Hisense version do not, even if you have a video card, that's the other thing, your video card has to have HDMI 2.0, I believe, to do 4K 60. I'm not 100% on that. But either way, you need a newer video card, you need a high-speed HDMI cable. But either way, even if you have those things, these TVs will not default to the HDMI 2.0 unless you manually do it. Now, I think, yeah, in my drop-down, I can select the 444. But when I do the 444, this changes to limited and it grays out, so you can't do anything about it. So I just left it. From what I read online briefly, RGB full is about equivalent to 444 limited, so I just leave it on RGB. And then I think even if you set it, yeah, even when you set it to the default, yeah, when it's set to default, it's still 32 RGB in full, so it doesn't really matter. If you wanted, you could change it to the 444 limited, but like I said, from what I've read, it's no point really. Unless you know something I don't or I didn't read, maybe the 444 limited is better. If you do know, put it in the comments. I don't know. So yeah. And then yeah, once you get that all switched over, you can leave this on default. Again, I wouldn't mess with the refresh rate. I mean, you can try, but at least the TV I got didn't like it, so get rid of that. And then there was one other thing. We'll back up a little bit here again. This is just, my archaic way of, well, I don't know about archaic, but my kind of just raw way of doing this video. If you go back into the menu, by default, when you turn the TV on, it'll always come to this menu first, and then you can select what you want to do, but 99% of the time this is going to be used as a monitor. So I believe if you go into settings, okay, I found it. You go into system. I don't know why I couldn't remember where it was, but in your main, go back to home here, but we'll go into settings again. And then you just scroll, you hit up once instead of going down, go into system. And then if you go to power, in power, your power on, you can select which input you want it to power on to. Instead of going to the home screen, You can have it go to the home screen if you want and then select whatever HDMI. But for me, like I said, since this is 99% of the time it's going to be used as my computer monitor, I just went in and set the power on to computer. And then now when I turn it on, it doesn't go to the home screen, it just goes straight to computer. I mean, this one downside is like this isn't like a monitor where it just goes into standby, and then when you wake your computer up or turn it on, the monitor automatically comes on. You're always going to, you know, most likely need the remote and, you know, power it on, but it's not really a big deal for me. It takes an extra 5 seconds. So, yeah, I guess I didn't even notice it was right here. I already went over it once. You can turn off the standby LED. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of other settings, so I think I've covered about everything I wanted to here. As far as scaling, since with the 43-inch, it's big enough you can leave your scaling at 100%. Even when I run some of my older apps that were, you know, Windows XP even, they seem to look fine because the scaling's at 100%. I mean, some of them maybe look a little bit weird, but even like this program, Basebox Pro, which is this program is actually, I think, even before Windows XP. I think it was first out on Windows 2000. But yeah, you can see, I mean, it's still looks just fine, even with the scaling. Same thing with where's another program? It was kind of weird about it. I don't know if I have it anymore. Nope. Anyway, all the programs I use. Oh, it was this. I use the Intel XTU software to overclock the HP Z420, and even this opens up just fine. Even at 1080p, if I mess with the scaling too much, this one would kind of get a little bit weird. But yeah, works just fine. So hopefully this summed up a few questions people had about buying a 4K TV as a computer monitor. Like I said, I don't think you can get a 32-inch 4K TV. I think 40 or 43 inches is about as small as you're going to find a 4K TV. But it also seems to be just the perfect sweet spot. I have a 6-foot desk. It's, you know, I can back this up a little bit more. And I still have, I think, about 10 inches or so roughly on each end of my desk. So plenty of room for speakers. I could even put, you know, monitors, some small, speaker monitors there. And like I said, scaling's been fine. When I play games, it seems to be fine. I couldn't find exactly what the refresh rate, or what the response time is on this TV, but maybe others are more picky than me, but I play, you know, a lot of first-person shooters and stuff, and I haven't noticed any issues with it. I played Warframe on it. After I got all this worked out, I played Warframe on it for a couple hours, and it was fine. I didn't notice nothing that bugged me anyway. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully this helps out some people that were thinking about doing this. And then if not, or what should I say? You could always just do what I did. Just go to Walmart, buy one, take it home, hook it up. Make sure you get all the settings like I have them, so your HDMI 2.0 and everything's, all your color settings are the way they're supposed to be. And just use it for a day, and if it don't work out, you can always just take it back. I asked the guy at Walmart if this thing doesn't fit in my room or something. I just made up something. You know, if this doesn't fit in my room, you know, as long as I put it all back in the box, can I return it? And he's like, yeah, no problem, or whatever. So I figured worst case scenario, if it was just if it just did not work out the way I expected, I'd just take it back, get my money back. So, alrighty. I was probably going to do a video on my HP Z420 workstation, which is, I can give you, is down here, right there. It's definitely not stock. I've been modifying it little by little. Not that I couldn't just build a better. The computer I had before this was actually like a $1,500 Ryzen system, but I ended up, or no, it was like $1,100, and I sold it to some guy for $1,500 because he really wanted a gaming PC. So, and then I used my extra $400 to buy this and a couple other things. I paid $200 for this HP, but I've done a lot of mods to it, and I'm slowly working towards getting a video done on it. So if you'd like to see that video, and because I guess using one of these Z420s as a budget gaming system, if you find the right one on eBay with the right right parts, you can turn it into a budget gaming PC pretty cheap. But if you want to see that sometime in the near future, like and subscribe. That video will be coming too. But all my other stuff is audio based. This has nothing to do with my normal YouTube content, but I'm not going to create a separate YouTube channel just to do one or two PC videos. So, all right, bye bye.